of a new bridge being constructed in the area, which combined with heavy rainfall is placing them in grave danger. Businesses have been suffering since February when the bridge collapsed and workers have been laid off. On Sunday, the mayor of Kingston and St. Andrew, along with members of the municipality, visited the area. He says the work is expected to be completed in another 3 weeks. The effects of heavy rainfall and a delay in the construction of a new bridge has left residents and business owners of Bowden Hill, St. Andrew in grave danger. An alternative route has eroded and the Hermitage Dam is overflowing. According to one business owner, persons were cut off from their homes on Friday.
No road to go home. This is what our road looks like.
She adds that the cost for transportation has also become a burden for residents. The Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, KCMC, and the contractors appear to be dragging their feet at the expense of residents' safety, she says. On Sunday, the mayor of Kingston and St. Andrew, Delroy Williams, along with the councillor for the division, Tosha Schwab, and members of the KCMC, conducted the necessary observations.
We are here observing, seeing what is happening, and seeing what alternatives can be made so that the residents can enter and leave the community.
He explains the reason for the delay in the construction of the new bridge as well as the plans going forward.
We are moving quickly to replace the bridge. The delay was caused by some bolts that had to be imported by the contractor from Europe, and we are told that those bolts are here now, so we can proceed with the assembling of and launching of the bridge at Bowden Hill.
As the mayor stands beside the materials necessary for the completion of the bridge, he shares what may very well be good news.
The bolts have arrived and will be cleared this week, sometime this week, and the bridge will begin work on the bridge within and seek to complete it within another 3 weeks.
Mayor Williams reiterates that the works will disrupt water supply to surrounding areas from the Constant Spring Treatment Plant, as NWC pipelines had to be removed in order to construct a new bridge. However, he says the National Water Commission will inform the residents of the period of water disruptions, which he says the KSAMC is working closely with the NWC to minimize to 1 week. Mayor Williams says the NWC and all relevant agencies will ensure water is supplied to affected areas. And in another update, the Jamaica Public Service, JPS, has responded to a story aired recently on CVM Live. Residents of Spicy Grove Estate in Arakabessa, St. Mary, demanded answers from the energy company as to the reason why their entire community has been plunged into darkness. This comes amid a land dispute between the residents, who say they have occupied the land and have been paying their taxes for over 40 years, and a man who says he is the proprietor. In an email sent to our newsroom, JPS states, "Please note that the disconnection was in compliance with a request from the owner of the property through his attorney. Proof of ownership has been provided through the presentation of his title for same. Any further concern should be raised with the owners of the property." The residents are calling on their political representatives to intervene as they are now without electricity. CVM Live will continue to track this story. The Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, says it is appealing the decision of the Supreme Court after a judge ruled that only the commissioner can forcibly allow a police officer to answer questions. The ruling, which is in line with the INDECOM Act, only gives authority to the head of INDECOM to compel a member of the Jamaica Constabulary to answer questions. Jamila Maitland reports.
In what the Jamaica Police Federation is describing as a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court says an INDECOM officer cannot compel a JCF officer to answer questions. Section 21 of the INDECOM Act says only the head of INDECOM, the commissioner, has this authority. Chairman of the Police Federation, Detective Sergeant Petray Rowe, highlighted the ruling as another instance of abuse of power by INDECOM.
The substantive ruling was that INDECOM commissioner is the only one that has the authority to compel, because the act gives him power likened to a judge, and therefore only a judge can compel compel a person to give evidence or to answer questions in respect to a pursuing investigation.
The ruling comes after a police officer was allegedly forced to answer questions by an Indicom officer. He was a witness in a 2017 fatal shooting involving a citizen. In a statement released by Indicom, it argued that the presiding officer was given the authority by the commission. The court ruled that such a decision can be recorded in writing and would be permissible for an Indicom officer to advise the interviewee that he is required to answer the questions. But according to the Act, that authority cannot be delegated to anyone else.
The court clearly states, and the judgment clearly states, that the authority to compel is non-delegable. What it means is that it cannot be passed on to anybody else. And Indicom's approach in this matter cannot be that commissioner is unavailable and therefore I'm going to give this authority to somebody else. It's non-delegable. Similarly, a judge in the parish court or Supreme Court cannot say that I am unavailable and I'm giving judicial authority to a clerk of the court.
Additionally, the Police Federation is calling for a review of the Indicom Act, citing that the powers to compel should reside with a judge. Jamila Maitland for CVM Live.
Early childhood education in Bunkers Hill, Trelawney received a boost with the official opening of an infant department at the Unity Primary School. The new building was made possible through assistance from the Chase Fund. Robian Williams reports on this move.
It is official. The newly renovated and expanded building will provide a much improved learning environment for early childhood development. The infant department at the Unity Primary School in Bunkers Hill, Trelawney was established in 2014, but over the years the population has grown and the infrastructure has become inadequate. Principal Pauline White Anderson welcomes the new building, which started construction in December 2018.
Unity Primary and Infant is committed to actively raising the quality of life for every child. We want all our children, regardless of the circumstances, to achieve their full potential. Our task is to make it possible.
Chief Executive Officer of the Chase Fund, Billy Heaven, points out that education is a process that involves all hands on deck.
We must, as responsible adults who should take responsibility, both parents, teachers and everyone, who take responsibility for the welfare and future of our children, to ensure that education wins the race at all times.
Heaven adds that a positive learning environment plays a role in the quality of education, and the Chase Fund is committed to providing infrastructure development, vital educational aids and resource materials to assist with the process. He points out that this stage of education should be prioritized as it will determine success or failure.
Early childhood education is too vital. It is too essential to be brushed aside. Even when resources are scarce, Mr. Member of Parliament, it should never be at any time at the bottom of the priority list.
Recently, the Early Childhood Commission, ECC, announced the first ever staging of a parents' forum to be held on Tuesday, November 19. The event will also see the launch of an Early Childhood Parent Partners Directory and an app that will contain information and contacts of parent partners and is expected to be ready for distribution in January 2020. Robian Williams for CVM Live.
The new president of the International University of the Caribbean, IUC, Professor Reverend Dr. Roderick Hewitt, says that there has been no government subvention for faith-based private institutions. During his address recently at the institution's graduation, Professor Hewitt explains that faith-based private institutions are under pressure as they have no money coming from government and they have to adjust to the changing times to remain relevant.
There's great pressure on faith-based tertiary institutions in Jamaica. Institutions such as IUC, let's say Jamaica Theological Seminary, the Moravian College Bethlehem. There are many other faith-based institutions that have been around serving Jamaica for a long time. They're not recipients of government funds, as it were. So we must seek new funds from other sources that can help these institutions to respond to the changing landscape of education in Jamaica. All faith-based tertiary institutions are going through economic challenges. The fact is that the faith community no longer carries the kind of resources, they are finite resources, and cannot fund tertiary education in the modern context.
Meanwhile, country manager at the Inter-American Development Bank and guest speaker Theresa Turner-Jones sought to encourage the private sector companies to employ the graduates.
Something called that countries that are growing very fast, like Singapore and some developed countries like in the UK, and others are using frameworks called career pathway frameworks. So working with the private sector and academia to get students to come out with skills that they can use in the workplace. And it's something we're encouraging the private sector to do here, because this idea of the mismatch between what those firms need and the kinds of workers they're on the workplace is not working. And we need to solve that. And the only way to solve that is to ask Grace Kennedy, ask Sagicor, ask whichever other company, CariMed, what kinds of people do you need working in your companies tomorrow? And let's see how we can fix and provide those skills.
Building houses, not communities. An urban development planner is calling for more consultation with community groups for projects. Dr. Archer says as the government strives to build resilient communities, it must do away with building just houses. She was speaking at the Kingston and St. Andrew Community Grants Program Awards. Jamila Maitland reports.
Dr. Archer, while outlining the community development process, says government agencies that work in the communities must consult with the groups before undertaking projects. She says the Local Governance Act 2016 incorporates local organizations to successfully build resilient communities. The urban development planner says the groups understand the problem and oftentimes have a solution.
What we have been doing these days, unfortunately, is to build houses, not communities. As we are providing housing solutions, we ensure that the mechanisms are in place to build communities.
She said the community is a key stakeholder and must be involved in the process from conceptualization to implementation.
20 years from now, when we sit and reflect, as we just did, we are reflecting on stated purpose, put down on paper by the community, sanctioned by the SDC, passed into law by the KSAC, and accepted by the Parliament of Jamaica, and budgeted for.
Dr. Archer is also calling for the availability of relevant data. She argued that the absence of data leads to poor planning and a waste of taxpayers' money. The latest community profile conducted by the Social Development Commission was done in 2009.
We are not within a context of a larger plan, a larger step of actions to take the community 20, 30 years in the future.
Several community-based organizations within Kingston and St. Andrew were awarded for advocacy, volunteerism, best economic initiative, community spirit, amongst others. The night ended with Gordontown CDC, Trenchtown CDC, and Rockfort emerging as some of the winners. Jamila Maitland for CVM Live.
Another great commitment to Jamaica's sugar industry. The government is providing an additional $200 million for the transportation of sugarcane from Moneymusk in Clarendon to the Worthy Park Estate in St. Catherine and Appleton Estate in St. Elizabeth for the 2019-20 crop season. The promise was made by the Minister of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, Audley Shaw, at the 70th Annual General Meeting of the All-Island Cane Farmers Association held at the Denby Showground in Maypen earlier this week.
The government's commitment to provide an extra $200 million for the transportation of sugarcane in St. Catherine is part of a short-term intervention to assist small farmers who operate in the Moneymusk area. That's word from the Minister of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, Audley Shaw, delivered in a speech by Senior Director in the Strategic Planning Division, Delroy Coley. Shaw says there remains a demand for sugar in various forms in Jamaica and across the Caribbean. At the same time, he addresses the setbacks faced by sugarcane farmers.
Adversity is a wellspring of opportunity. I say this against the harsh reality that the closure of the Everglades, Moneymusk and Golden Grove factories has resulted in the displacement of approximately 800 cane farmers. This displacement has brought with it great distress to the farmers in terms of their economic livelihoods, and it is not easy, but I believe there are new opportunities to be explored. So our task and our duty are to find fertile seeds of opportunity in the sugar industry.
Shaw says despite the challenges, the sugar industry continues to be a significant contributor to the national and global economy.
The sugar industry in 2018 contributed some 0.5% to the gross domestic product, GDP, and they earned or saved some US $57 million in foreign exchange and accounted directly for some 20,000 jobs and indirectly 80,000 jobs, or some 7.7% of the labor force.
Therefore, neither the government nor the various stakeholders can simply abandon sugar, Shaw adds. The issue of irrigation is also on the agenda. Shaw notes that the government has also identified other areas of assistance for sugarcane farmers, including fertilizers, which will be provided to the All-Island Cane Farmers Association.
And we take a quick break here on CVM Live. When we return, we'll have the news from overseas.